Alright guys, hey, how's it going? Second video as I promised today, 7/24, February 20th, on the East Coast. So, this second video is going to be about dealing with unruly or headstrong people. Throughout, like I said in the last vlog, I had encountered some not so nice people. And when I went to that first dealership, I encountered a manager I encountered a manager the first time, and we had shook hands over a deal of a price that I asked for. And he said, cool. He's like, I also recommend you go test drive, because I told him I wanted to test drive a competitor's vehicle. So he said, I recommend you go test drive the vehicle. I'll tell you a couple things where they can't touch us on, but go there, test drive the vehicle for yourself. They were very open and honest, and what I took away from that was that they were very confident in their vehicles. So I went to the other dealership, test drove the vehicle, then ended up coming home. Then I came back to that dealership the second day, and that manager wasn't there again. So I had to, after we negotiated, starting the negotiations of a deal, I had a separate manager come up to me, well, one manager who was kind of okay, couldn't meet the terms. Second manager came up because that first manager had to leave, and he was kind of a little more aggressive and headstrong type of person. So he came over to me and said, if I can't meet his deal, then it's no hard feelings. Shake his hand. I'll be on my way. And that if I'm going to not do a deal over a couple dollars, then there's no sense in doing the deal at all. And that's when I kind of laid into him and told him that a couple dollars may not mean anything to him, but it's a reason that I was able to establish myself, and that credit score that I've been able to attain is because of making smarter decisions, like not making a deal for a difference of a couple dollars. So that difference may not mean something to him, but over the course of a couple of years, a 3-year term, 36 months, even a difference of $5, you're talking about a couple $100 over the course of the lease term. So to him it may not have been much, but to me it did mean something. And I laid into him a little bit, and I told him, I needed some time. And then I had a chance to talk to the salesman again, and I said, man, he just ruined the deal, because I'm not going to deal with a person like that if they're not willing to work with me. I'm not you need to adjust for the type of customer you have. I've worked in this type of environment, and you can't come off headstrong to a customer who's trying to work with you and do different things with you. So, and this car salesman was super nice, super different car salesman, non-pressurable, trying to get you in a car that suited your needs, not that suited the dealership's needs. So very nice guy, reserved, just not your typical type of salesman. And he did tell me later on that he hadn't been there that long. So he wasn't like other salesmen, and he came from a different type of background. He hasn't been selling cars that long. So that's why he had that type of personality, which was well suited for me and well suited for him, of course, because we ended up making something happen in the end. But I did walk away that night from that dealership, and that's what prompted me to go to the other dealership, where I encountered another salesman who was also nice at the second dealership, the one that had better bank deals through my bank, supposedly discounts. So I thought they would be able to beat the other price. So I go over to them to see if they can meet my price needs, and they come out way left field, way overpriced, way overpriced even the other dealership, and they had more incentives, so it didn't make any sense to me. So I'm talking to the salesman, and then they bring over the finance person, which I ended up finding out that finance person was just another salesman. They weren't the finance person at all. They were running back to the finance person, but they proposed themselves as a finance person when they came over to talk to me and asking me, details about. I'm asking them intricate details. What's the money factor? That's a way to figure out the APR percent. It'll get you close to where your APR is. And that deals with leasing vehicles. And I'm asking, how many miles are they giving me per year? And then asking them how many years, what's the residual value of the vehicle. So many different intricate details that go into a leasing deal, which I knew about because I did my proper homework and research prior to. So as I'm getting all these things together, she's like, no, like use the calculator on our website. So I did. And I was like, let me put in here, and this is the price of what we're going to give you for your trade. This is the price of the vehicle minus the discounts. And I said, look, this is the price that it's there shown on your vehicle. And then she wants to flip on me and tell me that that's not, she can't argue with the computer. She doesn't know who puts the vehicle or the computer program together. And she backfired on her own plan. And she wasn't willing to honor it. So I said, she's just like, listen, let me run your credit. I said, the credit only has to do with the manufacturer. You're not running my credit until we get to some sort of ballpark. You're not even in the ballpark. So I know what they were trying to do. And that's when I encountered, we had finally gotten down into the ballpark of where I wanted to be at. And then after much debate and much trying and showing them that, these are the numbers with dealerships, you have to be prepared, very prepared, or else you will be taken advantage of. And that goes for a lot of different dealerships. I've worked in the business and I've leased a couple cars. I know the ins and outs of it, but only because I've had that experience there. And I just went through the experience. And the experience hasn't changed that much. You need to come in there, and they say one of the worst things you can tell a salesman is your monthly price that you're going to be at. But I do like to tell them that. And I'll tell you a couple reasons why. Because I end up starting out really low of where I wanted to be at. So if I know I want to be at 225, I'm going to tell the salesman I need to be at 199. And they're going to fire back their initial offer is going to be like 279 or something like that. And that kind of gets me closer to my ballpark. So then I'll bend a little bit and I'll tell them, listen, 210 is pushing it. And then you go back and forth. Eventually, I'm going to get to my goal of wanting to be at 225 because I started lower. But I made a mistake leasing the vehicle the first time, but I ended up having to stick by that there was no negotiation in my first lease. I told them that it had to be 250, and it was much debate, but I was able to leave the dealership the first night, and I didn't come back until they told me they can get down to that price, which they ended up doing. But I didn't leave myself wiggle room where I probably could have got a better deal, like I did this second time around. And it was after a lot of debate and a lot of trouble that I was able to pull that deal off. So as I'm at this second dealership, going through having problems with this finance person, we finally get in the ballpark, so I let them run my credit. And then they tell me that I need to that I may need a cosigner because I don't make enough money per month by myself, or that I already had a leased vehicle. And I said, that's a bunch of crap, but whatever. I can get a cosigner. I'm cosigned on my wife's and vice versa. She'll cosign on mine. Whatever, no big deal. So I get my wife to come in, and then that's where they give me the news that they're not able to locate the vehicle that I'm looking for. They didn't have one on the lot. And they told me that they did when I first got there, and then they told me they sold it a couple days prior. And then, so it's a lot of dishonest things happening there. So after all those different bad things happened to me with that dealership, I realized maybe it was time to rethink my strategy. And then in my last vlog, I talk about the strategy I put together. So I went back to that other dealership and encountered the original manager, the one who initially shook my hand on the deal that we agreed on. And he came back out. He called me over the phone first and told me that he apologized for the way the last manager treated me. And I told him, the set of events that took place because of the way that he came out. He was so headstrong and he blew the deal. So I said, if you guys want to win me back, you have to beat the current deal now that I have from this separate dealership. And I said, these are the new terms too, that I'm changing the price of I'm changing the vehicle that I want, the body style. I mean, it was a complete change of vehicle. It wasn't like from one SUV to another. It was like from SUV to sedan, because I was going to keep my SUV. So he called me back over the phone. He said, I will see what I can do. He was able to get down to $5 above. Then I told him, listen, this is the price. You have to beat it. So he called me back, told me he can do it, and we had a verbal agreement over the phone. I walked in the dealership. They showed me a paper showing that it was the price we talked about over the phone and I agreed upon, and not a penny over. A simple handshake that set off events that transpired, um, and that I thought I would be able to get a better deal. But that simple handshake resonated with me and him. He was prior military just like myself, and he stood by his handshake. Not only that, but he stood by the reputation of his vehicles. He was the one who told me to go ahead and test drive the competitor's vehicle. And that was one of the reasons that I went through that whole car buying experience. So I want to tie in some other things here. I did encounter a couple people in the military I was serving that were also very headstrong. I had this last boss at one of my assignments. Well, I had a couple bad bosses in the military, and that's not to badmouth them. They're not all bad. I had some really great bosses too. But I had some couple bad ones, and there's two that stick up in my head. I'll give you the most recent and then the most passionate one that I had. So the most recent one was a boss I had over in Colorado. So this boss started off really great relationship. I would even hang out at his house after hours. We'd hang out, we'd watch the Super Bowl there. He was kind to my family, kind to me, and a nice guy. And then, some things transpired, and he ended up not being the guy that I thought he would be. He ended up talking badly about me, and eventually, it resonated with my family. So I ended up giving him a piece of my mind because I moved from underneath his command to a separate. I had a different boss for a short period of time, and then I went back to him, my original boss, and I gave him a piece of my mind. Told him how I felt. I told our company commander, which is an officer, how I felt about the situation, how it made me uncomfortable, how this is a hostile work environment, that this is not the right type of environment for me because he disrespected me and essentially disrespected my family. How am I supposed to work from a person like that when I can't even trust him? They thought that it'd still be wise for him to be appointed over me. So you can only fight so much in the military, and essentially what that commander wants to have happen, that's what ends up happening. So I ended up having to wait him out, but I did give him a piece of my mind in front of the commander, and I asked to speak freely, and I let him have it. Everything that I heard, everything that was told back to me, and he didn't deny it. He actually said that he did say some bad things about me, but he doesn't apologize for the things he said. And I said, in front of my commander, how do you expect me to work for a type of person like this? You're just creating other bad soldiers, and you're letting bad soldiers get away with stuff. But he's like, since your time here is basically my days are numbered, I was already going to be discharged from the military for medical reasons. He just thought that it would be an easier transition for him to keep an eye on me. Plus, he didn't have too much going on, and the other bosses that I had much more going on. Plus, a few of them were leaving or changing environments, changing their scenery. So that was one, and sometimes you do have bosses that unfortunately you have to work with. One of the things I appreciate being out of the military now is if I don't like my boss, I just don't have to come back to work. That's my choice. That's my option. That's my freedom. In the military, unfortunately, that's not always the case. You can choose to not come back to work, but you are binded by a contract. And I take that contract very seriously. So even if a boss gets in the way, that contract still holds more importance to me than a bad boss. And I had a couple of those. And I'll start in on the second one, the most remembering one that I had. So this was a separate boss who I had issues with in Korea. He was an American person, but he was a boss, and I worked in a intelligence capacity in Korea. So as I'm working, they bring in a boss, but it has no intelligence background and never worked with an intelligence before. But he was just appointed over us because that's the way they set up the organization, and that they brought in a boss of the same job as the unit you were in. So I was in a cavalry unit, so I had a cavalry boss. And certain things he got, and one of the things I knew that people who got that position were generally broken soldiers, which means that they were old, they were seasoned, they were wise, but they didn't offer the same capacity that a regular soldier in a cavalry unit could offer. And they're definitely, not to say that they're bad, but they just can't do the entirety of the cavalry job, which is a tough job to do. But as he was put over me, they started to, he started to wanted to change things in order to run it in a cavalry way, which is fine. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with different bosses. But then it started to get a little too rigorous. He messed up a flow that we had prior to him coming there, and he was trying to change things to benefit him, not benefit the group of people. So I ended up standing up for a couple of the young soldiers, and that ended up getting me into some trouble with him because I didn't like the way he was kind of ordering things to happen, and he was only one pay grade above me. So I mean, you still have respect for him. But we ended up one day, and this is the one I remember the most. He was just leaning into me, trying to have me, basically yell at me. And he was so close to my face that the spit that was coming off of him was landing on my face. I took it as a huge sign of disrespect, but I still have respect for the rank that was on his chest that he earned, right, at some point in time. And he was also a prior Marine, so he had a certain character to him. And I have a lot of Marine friends that did deployments with Marines, and they're great people. But this one ended up not being, we ended up butting heads because I wanted to take care of the soldiers that I was responsible for. So, which I thought he would get, but we ended up butting heads over it. So I had to go toe to toe with this guy. And we had a lieutenant in there who was a good friend of mine, also an intelligence person. So he's within the field. He understands things. So he asked him to leave the room. That would have just left me and that boss in there. And I said, I don't feel comfortable being left with him. He had already started yelling. And he looked over at me. He says, what are you going to do? You're going to hit me? I said, that's exactly what you want me to do. And that's exactly the reaction you're trying to get, so you can do something to not harm me, because there's no way he would have been able to harm me physically, but harm me on paper, which you learn to find out as you get older. Sometimes paper, the pen is mightier than the sword. And what they put down on paper is what they're going to try to do. So as they're trying to lace me up for these certain actions that I took that I thought were appropriate and I was in my right to do, he didn't like them, so he ended up trying to write reports on me saying certain things, and that's when I had enough, and we went toe to toe. But I did have a witness thereby, and he did end up leaving the room. But shortly after he left the room, I said, I'm not comfortable being in here with you, and I'm not comfortable with what you're going to put on that report, whether it's true or false or indifferent. I'm not signing that report until you read it in front of your boss. So we can go sit down in front of your boss, who's essentially my boss, and we'll go iron out the situation there, because I got a leg to stand on, and I feel a certain way about it. So that's the way I handled it. We ended up going to what's called formation at the end of the day, where you get together. They put out some good information at the end of the week, safety briefing and all these other good things that they put out to the soldiers there, just to kind of reiterate that what to do, what not to do, and a lot of the safety things that they have to put out. And part of the reason they do that, I truly believe, is just to say they can tell you that they told you, and then if you do something bad or out of character, they can say, well, we gave you this weekend safety briefing. We don't know why you went out drinking and driving, or why you went out and got into an altercation. We told you not to do that. So that's part of the reason I think that they do that. But as we're at this end of day formation, and I'm coming into contact with this guy again, I come over to my first sergeant and I give him a heads up. Hey, had a problem with his boss. He knew him because that's his boss. And I said, listen, he's trying to put some stuff on me that this is what the situation is. You can go ahead and talk to him. He wanted me to sign two, in the military, they're called counseling statements, with pieces of paper. Whenever you do good or bad, they put it on a sheet of paper. It's like a rap sheet. It kind of follows you as you're at that post. And then once you move to another post, then it all goes away. So the good and the bad both goes away. So as we're getting over there and telling them everything, we wait till the end of formation, and then we go up to them, and he had two counseling statements typed up for me to sign that he wanted me to sign. And I said, I'm not signing neither one of these, and I'm not even taking the time to read them until we get somebody else of higher ranking than you and me involved in this, and that has nothing to do with anybody that you could have, turned or that's going to side with you. So I looked for, unbiased opinion. So as my first, and then he came to formation with one counseling. So of the two, he ended up tearing one up because I guess he thought that it didn't merit anything. It was just a bunch of malarkey, just a bunch of nonsense. That it was targeted towards me, and that's where I knew that he had messed up, is because he was looking to give me two for the price of one, and he came there with one, which you don't typically do that. I know that as a non-commissioned officer, you don't give out two counselings at the same time for one person. You handle one specific instance and then you try to address it, unless the soldier did multiple things, which is unlikely, and that's not what I did. So as he comes to formation, he starts talking to First Sergeant, saying that I'm being disrespecting a non-commissioned officer appointed over me, and blah blah blah. I said he wanted to. This is the conversation. This is the type of person he is. He doesn't. He's non-confrontational. So when it comes to talking to his boss, he's very submissive and yes sir, no sir type of mentality, just like I am. But if I have a problem with you, I make sure that you know. And I've always, it's one of the things that I learned in the military. I used to be very shy, but if I do have a problem with you, you know exactly what the problem is. You may not know how to fix it, but you know that I have a problem with you. And that's been for a majority of my bosses. Even the boss that I have currently, I've had issues that have come up, like one just recently, and I went to him to talk to him. And I told him, I started off the conversation by telling him that I appreciate that I can come to him and talk to them in this type of context, and I appreciate that open availability, because if I didn't have that, I may not want to work or represent this type of company or establishment. So all very good things that came from that. But to get back to that story of the most passionate one that I have, he's telling his boss everything that's going on, and I'm just sitting there listening. I look over to the boss. He reads the statement. He's like, well, there's not really much written in here. These are all generalities. But he's like, I would like you, talking to me. He's like, if you could just sign this, that way we can be done with the issue. I would appreciate it. I said, if you're asking me to sign it, I'll sign it for you. I'm not signing it for him. I'll sign it for you. So I did that because that boss looked out for me a couple different times, and I had a huge amount of respect for him. So if he told me to do something, I followed it blindly. Not blindly, but I followed it to a T. For the people I had a huge respect for, they'd ask me to do something, and 99% of the time I'd get it done, and right away. So that took care of that, and there wasn't really too much to come up afterwards. He tried to look for little things, but then in the military, after an incident like that happens with one of your supervisors, you truly do have to be on your game. So I showed up early to everything, stayed late, and didn't give them a reason. That's one thing I used to tell my soldiers all the time. Don't give them a reason. They look for reasons to step on people's toes, and that's one of the reasons that I ended up leaving that establishment, because I probably could have, fought a medical discharge a little bit harder and been kept in doing some other type of job. But the people that I was encountering, they started to step on each other's toes just to get ahead. And there was nothing, this guy looked to stop my promotions, looked to slow down things because I I showed promise. People liked me. I had soldiers who, to this day, still call me for advice, and I've been out of the military, a year today. Actually, is my year anniversary of being out, and I keep in contact with soldiers still, mentoring them. They'll call me when they're in some deep stuff. A majority of the time, they'll call me, for bad things that they've done, and they're looking for guidance, and I provided that guidance years ago, and I continue to provide that guidance to them, whether I'm inside or out of the military. It doesn't make a difference to me. I know how the establishment is supposed to be ran, but that's not saying that that's how it is ran. So that's part of the reason that I wanted out as well, and I didn't fight so hard to stay in, because it just started to get ugly. It wasn't the brotherhood that I had joined in the beginning. And sometimes you have to stand up for what you believe in, regardless of who you're going to make mad, because you're going to make people mad along the way. If you're trying to do something, you're trying to be a trendsetter, you're trying to live outside of the norms, which a lot of people don't try to do, you're going to end up making some people mad. You have to be aware of that. Sometimes those people will be your bosses, and you have to know how to deal with them. You've got to let them know how you feel, or else you're going to go home upset that you didn't do anything or say anything. So, to handle those types of unruly or strong-headed people, sometimes you just have to remove yourself from that situation, like I did at the car dealership, or you have to fight a headstrong person, like I did toe-to-toe with that boss I had, and let them know how you feel. Let them know how it is, that you truly see their colors, that you see what their bad intentions, that you're not the person that they think you are. And you can sometimes, they're mad at things that you can do that they can't. So, but you gotta know how to deal with those types of people. And sometimes, like for me, I didn't have the option to leave like I do today. If I don't like my boss today, tomorrow I do not have to give any notice. I can be gone. Common courtesy is 2 weeks, but if they do something to piss me off or make me mad, I can leave in a whim. Doesn't make a difference to me. Jobs are sometimes a dime a dozen. And it's, to truly have a good team and a good crew today, you really got to take care of your people. And I stress that to a lot of people who have people under them. Just take care of the people below you. If it's financially, if it's emotionally, take care of the people who work for you, because those are the people who take care of you. And when I wasn't felt like I was being taken care of, or that I was feeling like I was being targeted, I address those issues. I'm not shy anymore to address them, and I don't know why some people are, but it's okay to address those issues. You have an opinion. You have a freedom to talk in this country, and you should use it. There's some countries where people they can't say certain things. Here you might receive some backlash for what you choose to say, but you still have the freedom to say it. So why not use that freedom to voice your opinion in any way, shape, or form that you choose to? So that'll be it for today. This is my longest vlog, but I hope you enjoyed the stories along the way. Tomorrow we'll see if I can get the one out to you a little bit earlier. Probably not, because I do have to work in the morning. But maybe in the afternoon again, and I appreciate you guys watching, liking, commenting, subscribing. My views continue to go up. I'm still believe that I'm at 14 subscribers now. I think I have a subscriber subscribing or unsubscribing, but I'm back at 14. I was at 15 like a day or two ago. So I still have the goal of 20 for this month. I'm still going to try and reach it. Roughly got a week and some change left in the month, so we'll see if I can get there. If not, I still surpass my initial goal of 10 for this month. So thank you guys again for watching. Leave some comments on this one and let me know what you guys think, or how you've dealt with people in the past, maybe some bad managers or bad people in general. And we'll see what tomorrow's vlog will be about. Take care, guys.